Repechage is a French word for second chance. And it means that if you come in second, or at least in those days, it's now a different, somewhat different arrangement, but at least in those days, this, by the way, is over half a century ago, all of it. Half a century. So we entered the repechage and we won that quite easily. And then 3 days later, we therefore went into the final. And the Germans, of course, were in the final, along with Czechoslovakia and Italy and Yugoslavia. At that point, Yugoslavia was still one nation. And someone else, can't remember, you know, why worry about it? They're back there someplace. So in the finals, can you imagine the way you feel going up to the starting line? My reaction was my legs would start doing this, and I couldn't get them to stop. It was just some kind of automatic reaction to the and saying to myself, why in the hell couldn't I just be in the audience there watching this race? Why do I have to put myself into this kind of a position? You know, we're being asked to row harder than we've ever rowed, and you know, that's quite an exhaustive undertaking. So finally they start the count, you know, Allemand, Paix, all in French, by the way. Czechoslovakia, prêt, and then finally, and États-Unis, prêt, and finally he says, êtes-vous prêt, partez. And what's going through my head is, why the hell did the French use the word leave to begin a race that's important? Partez? Why can't you just say go or make a noise or something? And I'm supposed to be concentrating on. Anyway, we rode and we won, Paul. And this is a shot, believe it or not, of the end of the race. The race was delayed for so long that dusk was falling, and that's us right there. And the Germans are way over here someplace. And the Japanese army has shot these flares up so that the line judges could see what they were doing. Well, we went across the line, and the recovery of oarsmen is amazing. I suppose that happens in all sorts of sports. But I mean, we had just rowed 6 minutes, only 6 minutes, but we had rowed as hard as we had ever rowed, and went across the finish line. And by the way, when you finish, you know, you take a sprint, and you just put it all on the line. And you know, you think you're gonna, maybe I'm dead, or maybe I'm just close to it. And the pain swells, and then the pain begins to subside. And here we are, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, and you see the euphoria, people. Watching as the flags are being raised, the Olympic medals been placed around our necks. Avery Brundage, anybody ever hear that name? He was the head of the International Olympic Committee. But you know, you just don't know what to think. You're just so euphoric and disorganized. And am I happy? Am I, what the hell am I? There was a famous sports writer by the name of Red Smith, and he really wrote great stuff about all sports, not just rowing. Paul, you wanted to, I think it was maybe the next one.
No, there was part of this that I was,
All right, well, if you find it.
no, let's keep going.
Okay. Now, Life magazine thought it would be nice to show what happens to an Olympic team when they want to go well. And so, first of all, they put all of us in this hot tub. And I'll just leave that to your imagination. Here's my buddy Emery, swooning with a geisha. And later on, I think there's a picture in here of us sitting at a dining room table, at my dining room table, you know, the little tatami mats and all that stuff. Each of us had a geisha sitting right behind us. And we had a sake glass here and a beer glass there. And when the sake went down, she would reach across and refill it. And when the beer went down, she did the same. Now, we had been training for a solid year. And aside from occasional beer, we really hadn't done any drinking to speak of. We were far more disciplined than I ever thought that crew would be. So the alcohol went to our brains, or what was left of them, in record time. And the room was just absolutely crazy. Oarsmen leaping up. And well, I always pictured, you know, those walls that they have, those paper thin walls between rooms. I could picture Tom Emlon going right through the building. Okay. Here's this wonderful shot. Don't forget, we had all marched in as teams in the opening ceremony, all beautifully organized and lined up on the field. Here's the closing ceremony. And we were advised to just come in there any old way. So we were standing beside, Australian gymnasts. We were equestrian people. Everybody was mixed. And it was such a perfect way to end the games. And then this word, sayonara, appeared on. The reason that's Mexico is announcing the next Olympiad, 1968. But just before that, the word sayonara had been up on the board. And it was like an emotional overload. You just couldn't. What the hell has just happened? Is this? So there we are. You have any questions?
Yes. I have two questions. First question, what motivates someone to be a cop?
They're great people. And we love them, hate them, love them. And they're smart, they're really smart. Good coxswains are really smart. Because they're drawing every last bit of energy out of us. And they're steering, and steering is incredibly important to steer properly. It's a very awkward boat, 65 feet long. And you've got this narrow lane that you're racing down. So they're good people. Some of the best,
And
as we throw them into the water.
at the beginning, you referred to rowing as being a weird sport.
It is.
Can you define why it's weird?
Yeah, I mean, 6 minutes. You train every single day except one. We usually took one day off each week for a solid year, plus maybe 6 or 7 years before that for many people. And you're now racing for your life down this 2,000-meter course. 6 minutes and it's over. So 6 minutes seems like forever, by the way, when you're in the boat. Absolutely. But that's my answer to that. Yes, sir.
Good. My roommate at Yale was, I'm not happy. Actually,
Thank God there's one of them.
there you go. Was made the 80 Olympic team in the 80s, and she didn't get to go because of
Didn't get to go to what?
to the Olympics. So she was in the boat that didn't get to go. How do you think about that? How do you think about the politics of the Olympics as opposed to the sport of the Olympics?
Well, remember how long ago this is? This is over half a century ago. So things were a lot simpler back then. The qualifying process for making the Olympic team was pretty straightforward. Now it's very complicated. They go through camps. Right? Julia, you gotta brag a little bit. This girl could, for my money, could have easily made the U.S. Women's Championship 8. It's one of the best in the world, or at least it has been. And you have to. I think it's fair. I think it's the way they do it is fair. The sport has expanded a whole lot, so you have tons of people coming from places, the University of Minnesota, from Texas, all over the country, and they're making the team. So the old days where there were a lot of Ivy Leaguers, there were a couple of colleges from the West Coast and the University of Wisconsin. That was pretty much it. And nowadays, first of all, they don't have a regatta where they row college by college. It's all individual. You have to make the team as an individual. So now you'll see a mix of rowers making the team. It's really fascinating. By the way, we've got to celebrate this girl right here. She rowed for Blair Academy this year and won the Scholastic, what do you call it?
Scholastic, and the biggest, So it's Korean, it's the biggest high school in Uganda, and it has like over 5,000 individual.
Isn't it fun to embarrass people? He wrote for Blair Academy, stroke of their quad. And I've heard all kinds of compliments about where she's, which universities are chasing her. Typical, places like Princeton, that chase athletes, buy them on the market.
Her name. Voice, her name. Who is that you're talking
Oh, it's valuable.
Ali Wolf, sorry.
Hear the mic?
And there's another one beside her to her left, who had a little misfortune this year, but she too has some serious potential. So point of was, not to mention this babe right here. This one, serious potential. So women's rowing is, it's not quite on the subject that you asked me about, but women's rowing is so impressive in this country. It's one of the fastest growing sports in the country. And the women have done so well. US women won, correct me if I'm wrong, 11 years in a row won gold, either in the World Championships or the Olympics. 11 years in a row. Think of how many other teams you know of that performed like that. I expect both of you to be part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, every now and then we let somebody else sneak in. Yes, ma'am.
Well, that was a great talk, thank you. I'm wondering about your training outside the boat, what kind of exercise you did, running, weightlifting, that sort of thing. And Julia, is it the same these days? Or has cross training evolved a lot?
Doesn't she look like a heavyweight weightlifter? All of that, we did, even way back in '64, we did weightlifting. We ran in Fairmount Park in Philadelphia, all through the winter. And the only time we didn't row was when there was ice on the river, because we had wooden boats. And of course, they might have been sliced open by the ice. Nowadays, would they row in a sheen of ice?
Thin ice, yes.
Thin ice.
I think the biggest difference though is the invention of the rowing machine, the erg.
Mm.
So that, like, for me, that was a lot of time that was spent out of the boat was on the erg. For boys, not so much time on the erg.
That's because it hadn't been invented. It was invented by some Vesper guys, by the way. It's the most ugly machine ever been devised for mankind. Any other questions?
Well, how'd you end up getting the girl? You went to the dance? and you didn't-
But you know that 10 years after that event, I married her. 8 years after it, I sat in the same seat with the Olympic aid as the big alien that was at the same dance in Point Woods. So what it was real big. And,
That's a big party.
S.E. Esselstyn. Yeah, honestly, I used to, he's about my, well, I'm 3 inches shorter than I used to be. That's part of the same problem. You get shorter. Anything else?
What were the year before the Olympics, did any young people on the group have jobs? Were they working out in the morning, the evening, and going to work?
Yes, we had, by the way, don't ever believe the US government when they say that we don't subsidize sports. We had a Navy lieutenant, we had an Air Force lieutenant or captain maybe, and an Army captain, and we had a Marine sergeant in the boat. And the military was all about, oh my God, they couldn't get enough of this stuff.
Did they finance you?
No. No. Well, there must have been some government money. I'm not aware of nothing like they have today. I mean, nowadays, it's a wonderfully organized fundraising foundation that helps to pay for international racing. Anything else? Well, thank you so much.
Wow.